Hi everyone, Erwin here. As many people know, my wife and I, we sold off a significant part of our Canadian portfolio in the last 12 months, and we decided to deploy our capital where our investment dollars work harder for us in a landlord-friendly environment, specifically the USA. Now, I've created this table to help explain for you why we make the decisions. Now, I use here, we have Ontario/BC on the left, and here we have landlord-friendly USA. Let's look at landlord and tenant rights. The tenants have 10 times the rights of landlords, and we're talking about residential in Ontario and BC versus in landlord-friendly USA. You want to guess what it is? The landlord has most of the rights in landlord-friendly USA. Rent control. What do you think? I think any experienced real estate investor knows there's rent control that exists in much of Canada, especially Ontario and BC and Quebec. And now in landlord-friendly USA, you want to guess? No, there is no rent control in landlord-friendly USA. What happens if a tenant doesn't pay you rent? How long does it take you to evict them? In BC, I'm hearing it can be up to 5 months. In Ontario, it can be 8 to 12 months to get a hearing. Now that's just to get a hearing. It doesn't mean the tenant leaves even after you get judgment. So I have 12 months plus for Ontario. Now, landlord-friendly USA, it takes about 1 to 2 months. Big difference. This can be financially devastating to a regular everyday real estate investor. This everyone takes 1 month deposit for last month's rent. So really worst case, you're kind of out 1 month rent, maybe a little bit more to refill the property. Mortgages. Now this one's a really popular topic because real estate investing is not interesting to me without mortgages. Now how do mortgages work in Canada? You have to personally qualify. Yes, the banks and lenders will take into factor the rent that's coming in for the property, but you still have to personally qualify. And then unless your income is always growing, you make tons of money, pretty much everyone is limited in how many properties they can have. I know my wife and I, we are limited in our ability to get Schedule A financing, which means cheap investing, cheap lending. Now mortgages in the States, how they work for investors, including us as Canadians, as non-residents, the property qualifies for the mortgage. Now, these mortgages are called DSCR, Debt Service Coverage Ratio mortgages, meaning how it works is if the rent covers the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and condo fee, or they call it in the States, homeowners association fees, if that covers, you get a mortgage. You obviously have to have a down payment, of course. And so because this is more what we're used to as commercial style here in Canada, it is commercial style even for residential rentals for us Canadians to purchase income properties in the States. And therefore, it is 10 times easier to build a portfolio and scale a portfolio in the States versus here it is in Canada. Income. Now, and of course, when you're buying property in Canada, you're buying properties in Canadian dollars, you're collecting rent in Canadian dollars, and hopefully you have positive cash flow in Canadian dollars. The reality is most don't have positive cash flow. In the States, it's much easier to find positive cash flow, and of course, it's in US dollars. Now, anyone who wants to debate me that Canadian dollars are better than US dollars, happy to debate you on this all day. But just simply put, if you left Canada and offered to pay people in Canadian or US dollars, how many of them would take US dollars over Canadian dollars? Pretty much everyone. So which currency do you think is better? Basements. Now, one challenge with properties in Canada is because it's cold, we all have basements. A lot of people here locally in other parts of the country, they do basement apartments. Now, apartments are expensive. They're expensive to build too, and they can be flood prone, especially with all this climate change, all this flooding that's going on. To me, it doesn't make sense to invest into a basement, as in like creating a basement suite, right? Because from my experience, basement suite conversions, they range between $130,000 to $160,000 to do for regular everyday investors, right? Versus in the States, because it's warm weather climate, they don't have basements. So you don't have the same risk of it flooding. You don't have the same maintenance issues of a basement failing. Now for property management in my experience in Canada is generally they're small operations. Mom and pop as I call them. Yes, there are big ones, but generally they work for big investors. They won't work for people like me because my portfolio simply isn't big enough for them to take me on. Mom and pop investors. Versus in the States, we can get institutional grade property managers. We can hire the same property managers that the big investors get. So institutional property managers, they will manage 3,000 houses in the same market that we invest in. Imagine when you have that kind of scale. That means they have in-house staff, repair people, lawyers, accountants, everything to bring down the cost of management. Now for cash flow, really hard to find in Canada, right? I hear it all the time. I talk to Canadian investors all the time across the country, and they find it very difficult to find deals that cash flow positively. Versus in the States, we at Share, we're regularly finding cash flow positive properties. For those who understand commercial real estate investing, we're finding 5 caps to 7 cap rates all the time. And with for many deals, with as little as 35% down, our clients are able to cash flow at today's historically high rates. Now just imagine what happens when we can refinance at low rates, probably in 2-3 years from now. Our cash flow will significantly improve. Now, that's a summary there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Generally, I'm finding that no one really wants to debate me on this topic, that US investing is better than Canada, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, we're always offering lots of free content. We have free reports on where to invest in the States, how to invest in the States for Canadians to invest in the States. And of course, we're offering free training webinars as well. So make sure you click below, take advantage of our free resources, and because nothing would make me happy to see more and more investors actually cash flow positive and actually build long-term wealth without all the stress of being an Ontario or BC landlord.